So we need to talk about the difference between active and passive immunity. And this is something that students oftentimes get incorrect for whatever reason. I think they confuse the terms. So active means that we have a body that is producing antibodies. So is actively producing its own antibodies. Okay. So this is the active production of your own antibodies. So we could do this naturally. So we have natural exposure to a pathogen in our environment. But sometimes we also get vaccinated, right? So that's not necessarily natural, right? But it does cause a natural response, right? But vaccination is example of active immunity. Okay. So this means that you develop memory B cells when you get a vaccination, just like when you get naturally exposed to the virus. So passive immunity has to do with passively receiving antibodies from another source. Now, this does not happen generally when we're adults, but it does happen when we're in our mother's uterus, right? And so before we're born, and it does happen if we breastfeed. So passive immunity could be the antibodies passing through the placenta, right? So receiving antibodies. So we could put the fetus example, receiving antibodies across the placenta. So a mother even getting vaccinated could, like by the flu, right, could actually pass on those antibodies, or by COVID, antibodies to the offspring, so that when they're born, they have already been exposed to what is in their environment. So they already have some immunity, but it's passive, which means it's not long-term because no memory cells have been produced. So that is a really important difference between these. So we would say in the active immunity, we have memory cells produced. So we could say memory cells produced. And let me plug this in so I don't get shut off. Memory cells produced, and it is long acting, so it is long term. So it is long acting. Passive immunity, we would have no memory cells produced. So it is short acting. Okay. Another example would be that very first milk that you produce as a lactating female. And it has a interesting name. It's called colostrum. And if you've ever seen colostrum, colostrum actually looks different than the other milks because it is just packed full of proteins, including packed full of antibodies. So this is my first milk. So it is kind of watery, it's kind of yellow, it doesn't even look white. It looks very odd, right? And so this colostrum, oops, how come that didn't come through? Colostrum, I'll spell it for you. This colostrum, colustrum, right, is the first milk. And so that colostrum is really important. Okay, I lost my screen broadcasting, but I was done anyway. So thank you guys for tuning in.